So I think the main issue is not do you have great products that appeal to people? I think the main issue is how are you going to get to market? How are you going to get to market in certain territories? And if you are a manufacturer based in the US, it's very easy. You just have a dedicated salesperson that reaches out to all the stores and eventually all the chains, and you start marketing and selling these things, and you're good to go. It's a lot more difficult getting into other territories because there might be other regulations as far as like what you have, what kind of like things you need to comply with on a technical level. I know that it's very, very difficult in Canada as well. There are a lot of things that apply in Canada to regarding how products need to be made and what kind of certifications you need to have to actually sell stuff into Canada.
Yep.
And the same applies for Japan. Japan is very difficult as well. It's very complicated. So it's a little less complicated with Europe. But then again, so if we look at Bad Cat, great products, amazing stuff, but I think it's difficult to get them because there's no proper distributor, or there is not yet an established connection between some of the bigger sort of stores, such as Thomann Music Store, Andertons, etc., as to establishing a connection and then actually start making business. And that I think might also apply here for Rivera, where they have like they have amazing products, but in order to be able to sell into the EU, for example, you either need a couple of strong stores that are willing to take the line and to actually commit also financially to some extent, or you need a distributor. And distributors are more difficult to get these days because there are less and less distributors willing to take a risk. But there are also less and less good distributors. But that's a topic for another podcast because there's some.
It's an interesting topic though, because
it is
because if you look at like your angle, and I agree 100% with you, is like reaching a certain market, the laws that are in place with the different countries, that all plays a huge part in it. And I think if a company can manage to like secure a certain market, they will usually invest in it because it's so hard to go reach other people. So if you're an American-based brand and it's easy for you to have access to Sweetwater and Zounds and all of these like different outlets that are pretty big, and they have a lot of reach, then it's easy for you to tap in because you already know the laws. Like if there's like different state laws and all that, I'm sure like it can be more complicated than what this little Canadian knows. But then when you start to deal with Germany and Belgium and the Netherlands and France and all these countries, they don't all work and operate on the same way, especially for marketing. Like in Canada, you were mentioning that marketing in Canada is different. So for example, I know that it doesn't 100% relate to what we're talking about, but it's just an example of how complicated it is. So in Canada, when it comes to marketing, let's say you market on TV. If you're a company that is marketing for children, you cannot address children directly. So if you're watching Saturday morning cartoons with your kids, you can't have the American style, like, this is the new character, blah, blah, blah. And then the kids are fighting. You can't target your ads specifically to kids because they don't want you to influence the kids.
Interesting.
So the ads have to be more elaborate for the parent, for older consumers. So if you start to look at it from that angle, if all countries have different rules and regulations about how you can market in different countries, it would take a team of people to figure out all the different laws for marketing. And then you have like branding also. Like, let's say, I don't know, you come up with the Clubster, and that's a thing in your country, and that's the name of your amp. But then you want to sell in, I I don't know, you want to sell in Belgium and there's someone else here that is building amps and they have a clubster. Maybe you have to change the name of your product for that market. And you're thinking, Belgium, there's 11 million people there. Not a whole lot of fucking musicians. Nah, fuck it. I'm not going to Belgium. So then Belgians, if they want to buy this particular product, they have to buy it from somewhere else. And then they have import taxes. They have all. So the access, the easy access, like if you think of Thomann, if you go on Thomann, you buy it, you know it gets over here. But if you have to go through some small company, they don't have the same reach and power, that might affect who you can reach in terms of sales. And it's all shit that was probably much more complicated back in the 1970s, 80s, because you didn't have the internet where you could look up this shit. So you'd have to like cold call someone in, I don't know, in the Netherlands. Hopefully they speak English. They can tell you what the laws are and try to find like some kind of middleman so you can get your product out there. And that's just like one massive part of this. And then there's the online influence, you know, whether it's Facebook groups, forums, YouTube videos, you know, the sky's the limit here on what will influence people like myself. I want to buy an amplifier. Which one do I buy? You go top 10 best amplifiers. It's always the same things that come back up, right? It's the same brands, the same models. And then you see like the Vox AC15 is like always in the top 30 every fucking year of top sales throughout the world. And then the Blues Junior also is secured there in like maybe the top 10. But you don't see Riveras. You know, there's other brands like that you hardly ever see. You know, a brand like Laney. Laney's been around for a long time and they made some iconic amps. But they're kind of like Rivera in that sense where you see them, but you don't necessarily think of them on par with Marshalls or Vox or Fender, right? And Rivera is not the only one here. There's other companies I'm sure we could dedicate a solid 2 hours to where they have an incredible lineup of gear, but we just don't talk about it. Like for guitar, G&L.
Oh yeah.
G&Ls are fucking fantastic guitars. But, you know, to people, they're not Fenders. How about Ernie Ball? You know, the Music Man guitars are fucking phenomenal. But people, like the resale value on them is not there. But if you want to buy one, go look at the prices. You go, holy shit, $6,000 for a guitar. And then if you look at it on the used market, it's almost cut in half, sometimes more.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
So perceived value sometimes for the people who know they're willing to put in, let's say, like we were talking about earlier, $3,000 for an amp head. They're going to go, yeah, that's the amp I want. But if you're buying stuff and you're kind of like undecided about gear, you might not buy a Rivera, because if you look on the used market, you might be like, ooh, resale value is not there. So you might be hesitant to buy that. But if you buy, I don't know, like a Mesa Boogie, or you buy some kind of reissue Marshall, something like that, the resale value tends to be typically a little better, if not much better. So there's all these variables to the marketing. Like you can market to me and appeal to me, and I might put my bottom dollar on what you're doing. But if I'm like hesitant, I'm like, okay, yeah, I might buy that, but what's the resale value? If it's not there, now I'm trying to think more like a guitar collector, which I'm not, but you still try to put on that hat. Like, is this a worthy investment? So I think that's where a price for a Rivera amp, they're probably totally justified. If you look at how much R&D they put into it, the quality of the parts, everything. But to us, like the majority of the people that might not pay attention to Rivera, we might look at it and go, $3,000. I could put that on a Mesa, or I could put that on, maybe a Friedman or something else that I know if I don't like, I'll sell it and I'll get my money back out of it. So it's another angle that's super important that we don't really address, but it might be something that companies, if they start to look into it, might be able to market why you really need this and why you might not need to buy another amp. Because we buy a lot of shit. Guitar players, we buy a lot.
yeah, we buy a lot of stuff, and